Sometimes it pays to take a little time to reflect on just who we are. From time to time, we should think about our relatives and our people in general and reflect on the contributions they have made to this world and most especially to this country. We should take time to give ourselves credit for being, as Dr. Ed Robinson out of Philadelphia says, the fittest of the fittest of the fittest people on the face of the earth. Why? Because of everything we've been through. And we're still here. We're still here. Survivors. We are the children of the slaves who would not die. And I put quotes around slaves because we really weren't slaves when we were brought here. We were brought here and then we were enslaved. A very strong, important distinction there. And I always say we didn't come over here on slave ships. We need to change the way we describe our existence in this country. We can do that. We don't need permission. We don't need to go downtown and ask anyone. We can say, we can define ourselves. So my definition of how we came over here was not on slave ships, but on entrepreneurships. Catchy little double entendre, right? We came over here on entrepreneurships because every man and woman that was brought over here had entrepreneurship inside of them. Either they were practicing it or they saw it at work every day. So keep that in mind as we think about who we are and how we should be proud of who we are. If you had the privilege of knowing your grandparents and great-grandparents, you were probably witness to some of their amazing talents and abilities. You also had access to their knowledge and wisdom, although many of us didn't learn from it. We saw our relatives build houses without architectural drawings, cure diseases without doctors and prescriptions, stop bleeding with cobwebs, raise enough food for their families and 2 or 3 others, cure meat in the smokehouse, dig wells and draw poison out of a cut with a piece of fat back. Our relatives could make a meal out of what we thought was nothing. You ever had that feeling around the house? So you look in the refrigerator when you were a kid and oh, there's no food, mama. A couple of hours later, you look around and there's a meal on the table. They could sew up the holes in our socks, patch our jeans, and put cardboard in our shoes to make them last just a little bit longer. You remember that? They could deliver babies, as my great-grandmother did for my older brother and myself. When we were born, I was born on Central Avenue in a house. There were 5 children, only 1 was born in a hospital. The first 4 were born at home. And my great-grandmother was the, what do you call it? What's that, I can't think of the term. The midwife, right? But they were amazing. They helped one another with whatever they had, our people did. And it was dinner time at all the neighbors' houses anytime we wanted to stop by. I used to love to eat across the street when I lived on York Street at Ricky Alfred's house. They were from Alabama. And you know, they used to eat greens and cornbread. And they ate it with their hands. And I thought that was just the best thing. I'd go over their house and they would mix up the cornbread and the greens like that. And everybody would eat. I said, man, this is great. I went home one day, you know, and we had greens and cornbread one day, and I did it. My mother thought I was crazy. What are you doing eating with your hands? I said, that's what they do at Ricky's house. So it was just a fun time down on York Street with the Hoggerbrooks and Alfords and Billy Fancher and the family across up the street, Thompson and Wyman Johnson. And there was another family, Armstrong. Cheryl Armstrong is the lead teacher at the Entrepreneurship High School that we started in 2001. But they lived on York Street. Matter of fact, her family still lives there between Lynn and John. That's where I grew up for the most part. Lived on Dayton for a little while too. But those were some good times, especially with that greens and cornbread, eating with our hands. Remember the ham bone? Checkers? Homemade ice cream you had to churn, a pot of beans and some cornbread that lasted all week, and that nasty, greasy, slimy, you know, castor oil. How about having to take cod liver oil every morning? Did you have to do that? And coal oil and sugar. Did anybody do that? Coal oil and sugar. That's really kerosene, right? I had to take it sometimes. Anybody get rubbed down with goose grease? How about drinking some rock candy and whiskey when you had a cold? And then there was that stinking little bag we had to wear around our necks when we had a cold. You remember that? Our relatives knew their stuff, didn't they? And you should be proud of that. The music our people made was unbelievable. Their voices and their mastery of musical instruments, even without the benefit of formal training, was something to behold. Our folks were some piano playing, guitar plucking, drum beating, horn blowing, high stepping, singing brothers and sisters. And they still are. Doesn't that make you proud? And then there were the economic collectives that they established to help take care of burials and other critical issues. Now, just think about it today. Whenever there's a crisis among black people here in Cincinnati, people come on the radio and put out a call for a fund. Oh, we need to start a fund to help bury this person. Oh, the person got burned out. We got to start a fund. There's so many funds and so many banks in this town for black people because we're crisis-oriented rather than proactive like our relatives were. Wouldn't it be simple enough for us to just have one fund and just put money into it whenever we had a few dollars? I started one of those back at the Black Credit Union in 1998 called the Unity Fund. Couldn't get enough people to support it. Maybe we just like crises, right? I don't know. But it seems to me that it makes more sense to be proactive, to put some money away, all of us, into one account, and just when there's a crisis, we have it. No problem. Little common sense. But they say common sense is not common, so maybe that's why we don't do it. Our people knew that they had to pool their resources, and they knew they had to take care of themselves. Maybe that's why they knew how to do so many things with their hands. As I look back at my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, I'm amazed at what they did during very rough times. They established their own business enclaves all over this country. Places like Greenwood, which we're going to talk about, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the Hayti District in Durham, North Carolina, right here in Cincinnati. You remember how it was down around, 6th Street, 7th Street, up around where I live, York Street, Lynn Street, Finley Street, up in Walnut Hills, all the black businesses that were there around the Lincoln and Gilbert area. You remember that. Some of you remember that. And if you're too young to remember, ask somebody, or do some research and find out. Cincinnati has a glowing history when it comes to black business. All you have to do is look it up. So aren't you proud of who you are, where you came from, and what your relatives did to make sure you had food on your table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head? We should celebrate our blackness and always cherish our culture. As Dr. Claude Anderson teaches, we should be proud to be black because God made us first in His image, and He placed us in a perfect place on earth, on land that contained every vital mineral and natural resource necessary for growth and prosperity. He gave us enough wisdom to share with the entire world and to bring others out of the darkness into the light of knowledge. We are God's special people. How are we using that? Are we misusing it? Are we underutilizing it? Are we teaching it? Are we passing it on to our children? This is Black History Month. Here's your opportunity. So with all of that going for us, why wouldn't we be proud of who we are? A lack of pride and love for ourselves would be an affront to God, like slapping Him in His face and saying, I don't like what you did, God. Yes, you made me first. You made me special. You gave me wisdom. You gave me the richest land on earth. And you made me the strongest among men. But God, you also made me black. And I don't want to be black. It's too hard being black. It's too stressful being black. And if you really want to know the truth, God, I'm ashamed of being black. But you know, Romans 9:20 says this, and I quote, "But who are you, O man, to talk back to God? Shall what is formed say to him who formed it, why did you make me like this?" think about what I'm saying. Ask yourself, are you proud to be black, or are you trying to run away from blackness? You can't run away from it. You can't graduate from it. You can't be promoted away from it. You can't get enough money to get away from it. Oprah and Bob Johnson notwithstanding. You are what you are. And guess who made you? I don't have to tell you that. You should appreciate it, and you should pass that on to your children, especially during Black History Month. So can you imagine some of our people thinking the way I just described? I know we've been through a lot in this country, and the struggle continues, as they say, but truth can never be destroyed. Hold on to that truth. We're still here, still standing after all the blood, sweat, and tears of our people. Black people have persevered, and we will continue to do so. So take a moment to give some credit to your people, those who survived so you could be here today. You are the fittest of the fittest of the fittest. Don't forget that. Give honor to those who have passed on, and be proud of what they did. Be proud of whom you are and the legacy you are obligated to uphold. Understand that you too must pass on a legacy, and that will only happen if you love yourself and your people, if you value your history, and if you take pride in the greatness of black people.